now entered scrub territory.
Hello everyone, how are you feeling today? It's Eros31 from Team NDL, and this is my first deck profile in a coalition of scrubs. Before we begin, a few quick things. First off, there is a celebration on my channel going essentially right now called Fusion Month. I will leave the tag here, and I'm hoping the guys will also leave that in the description down below, so you guys can check that out if you want to be part of the fun until April 3rd. I'm just doing really crazy things because we're reaching the channel 3rd anniversary. My own channel. Another thing is, this is before Secret Slayers and before, at least on the time of recording, before, what it called? Dual Overlord. So, because of that, Yugioh and all of those particular cards are not going to be in, but I will try to get them to the next update of this deck, and in my opinion, this is a deck that is very underrated. A lot of people call this deck kind of bad, but I have to say this is just not a bad deck. This is just a high skill deck. It's not considered that you are a bad player if you don't know how to play this deck. It just considers that this deck is really difficult, and that's why it's high skill deck. It's still, in my opinion, like a tier 2, tier 3 deck, but it's very fun. But let's get started. So in this particular deck, I'm going to open up this in terms of engines because I think that will save time. So let's start with the ritual monsters. 1 copy of Executor, 2 copy of Battlelord, 2 copies of Slayer. So let's go break down the monsters. Executor is your kind of like one to be your end goal. Also very happy he's super, by the way. But like, you don't have to end the board with him anymore. Like back in the day, you had to end the board with him because it's kind of like, it was really bad, and targeting effects are still annoying, but like, it's not like a must as it was back in the day, because Yugioh exists and it's kind of giving you a little bit more protection. Battlelord is the card I want to bump up to 3. This card is so ridiculously good with the effect of like stopping monster effects during your turn by banishing one of your ritual spells or any Vendred card in the graveyard, and then your opponent cannot use Ash or Draw or DD Crow or anything, or even you can stop trap effects, but mostly you want to stop monster effects because that's mostly what hand traps are. But even if you don't stop, you kind of provoke your opponent to use one of his hand traps. So this card is such a good card, and I'm considering bumping this up to 3 because it's less searchable than this guy, which I run on 2 because it's so searchable. And you technically don't need more than 2 because more than 2 is pretty much a brick, and you can always add it to your hand with pre-prep, because pre-prep add this back to your hand from the graveyard. Like, it's had a ritual spell and a ritual monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand, which is really interesting, and a lot of people don't intend to use that most of the time. So that's pretty much it for the Vendred rituals. For the Vendred monsters, 1 Hound Horde, 1 Strategist, 1 Core, and 1 Anima. No Revenant. Revenant, in my opinion, is the worst one. Sure, it has the best, essentially, effect, but its in-term effect of like special summoning itself is really bad. And most of the time what you want from these cards is 2 bodies in 1. This one is essentially a free special summon from the banish pile, which is okay, but I might cut it in the future. But these 2 are all 2 summons in a way. This one is immediately when it's sent to the graveyard, it's give you to reveal a Vendred card and special summon from the grave, but banish it. Mostly it's 1 summon, but it's a really easy 1 summon. It's like technically 2 summons if you get them first on the board, but you know what I mean. It's like just easy way to get them as an advantage when you send them to the graveyard. Core is the most important one. You banish a zombie from your grave, special summon it. Of course, banish it when you leave the field. And as Hound Horde is just discard a card, and then discard a Vendred card, and then special summon itself from the graveyard. And when it's used on the field for a ritual, giving you the ability to banish a spell and trap with that ritual monster. Strategist is draw a card and discard a card when attacking. Core is the monster is untargetable, so Executor, which makes the entire field untargetable, will now not be targetable as well, and that's the reason why this card was so good. Anima is just locking you for zombies for the rest of the turn, but summon a zombie out of your banish pile. Or should I say a Vendred out of your banish pile, which is actually pretty powerful. Most of the time I use it to summon core because it's really good. Then for the rituals for Vendreds, like I said, we're continuing this as an engine. 3 origin, 3 evolution. Since this is a 60 card deck, 3 evolution is a must. Also, evolution proved to me more and more to be an amazing card. Sure, you can only run 1 per turn, but like I said, you run a 60 card deck, so seeing it 2 is really, really low chance. And even if so, you have ways to discard it. And then for the last card from the engine, except from like the field spell stuff, which we'll get to it, is in a separate engine by itself. 3 copies of charge. Kind of funnily enough, people consider this to be one of the worst Vendred cards when it came out, at least most of the Yu-Gi tubers, the big ones, which shows to you that sometimes, yeah, even the biggest Yu-Gi tubers don't know how to play a certain deck. And this proved to be the best card. The Extreme Force support proved to be the best support out of all the 4 sets, and it's kind of ridiculous because people consider it to be the worst support out of the 4, or at least until Flame of Destruction came out. It considered it to be one of the worst one, but apparently it's the best one. Which is kind of funny. Then we'll move on to the Incantation engine. Yes, I do run Incantations, which is one of the ritual spell, and one of each of the monsters. You run one of each because you don't want to clog with them. This one is searchable by Battle Lord, so that's why you only need 1, and these are just there to be special summoned by its effect, and then you can just search, for example, like use your ritual spell, get them off board, and they don't stop your plays. They're just really, really good. And the off chance that like you open up with 3 of them, which did happen to me one time, is really, really rare, but it could happen, and it was so annoying when that happened to me. But yeah, it could happen, but like I said, 60 kind of make this almost impossible to do, though. Then for your Zombie World engine, you only need 1 of each. Necro World Banshee is just a good one-off that you send with Beatrice. Same for Glow Up Bloom, and this one is one that you don't really want to see multiples of. Yeah, sure, some people will maybe say, like, you might going to bump this and this up to 2. Not necessarily. Zombie World is really good, but it's not the main focus. Sure, you want to end the board with them, but you don't have to. It's really, really cool. This deck kind of, like, able to do multiple things and have multiple win conditions. Sure, the Zombie World is the best option, but you don't have to. Then for a new engine that I kind of like, a new engine, but kind of an old one that I took out and then decided to put back again, because Goblin Zombie proved to be less and less useful. I'm using the Vampire engine, because A, I can make the Vampire Link and then special summon this from hand. Secondly, I have 1-for-1, and it's just really, really easy to kind of like go through this combo with 1-for-1. Special summon Familiar, Familiar special summon Retainer, search Retainer, Retainer special summon itself by banishing or sending to the graveyard Familiar, and then you get Domination, and then you have still Familiar in the graveyard to then send Retainer or whatever, and you have Domination. Which most of the time you're trying to end up with the Vampire Link for Domination to work, and Domination kind of proved to be really useful. It's giving you the option to deal with annoying cards like Dark Ruler No More and Lightning Storm, which are pretty annoying for this deck to deal with. Then for the last kind of engine, which is the Field Spell engine, Vendred Knights and Zombie World kind of like obvious options. Actually, Vendred Knight not much so, but I will explain. Terraforming to search them. And then Ritual Sanctuary. Ritual Sanctuary is just really good because you can discard a spell to add a ritual spell to your hand. You need sometimes this additional search. Vendred Knights is just discarding a card and add a Vendred card to your hand, so you can add easier way to add a ritual monster, or just a Vendred monsters that you need, and set up your graveyard. And then we'll move on to the Zombie engine, which is 3 Solitaire. I don't think I need to explain that one. 3 Unizombie, because it's a 60-card deck, and it's pretty important. And then for the one-offs, yes, there's one-offs. I run 1 Mizuki, 1 Gozuki, and 1 Shinobi Necro. Gozuki is just needed as 1, because you technically have 6 Unizombies in your deck, so this serves as a 7s. Not that good, but still pretty okay. Mizuki, actually, a lot of people are going to consider me like maybe even a crazy man running this at 1. But the more and more I played with Mizuki, the more and more I realized it's like, yeah, sure, it's a good card, but back in the day, I considered sending like 3 copies of this to the graveyard, and even then, it wasn't the best strategy to do. This is just an additional way to maybe do stuff. And Shinobi Necro is just a must-off in this deck because it's the honorary Vendred monster. Should have been called Shinobi Vendred Necro, I think, or something like that, because it's so good with the deck. You pretty much banish it from the graveyard with let's say, the effect of Origin, and then you special summon it to the board, and then if you summon a zombie monster, you get to draw and discard a card, which is really, really good. And it's also a tuner, so yeah, it's really, really nice, and most of the time, this is the card that I send with Unizombie and not Mizuki. And then the last one, which probably going to change a little bit, this is Jacko Bolan. Just a nice special summon discard outlet, and just a nice kind of like disruption, as well as a level 7. And just generally, let's say I see my level 8 Doom King. This is another way to special summon a particular card from your deck, or just add it to your hand with Glow Up Bloom, which is pretty nice. So that's it for the related zombies. Then for the rest of the cards is just good spells. Free pre-prep, 3 preps. It's pretty much understandable. 3 Called by the Grave to stop your opponent from annoying you. 3 copies of Extra Foolish Burial, which is a card I'm considering. I actually considered running a 2 at the start, but the more and more I play with it, I consider it to be so useful. Because it's giving you the ability to send Herald of the Arclight, which I do run at 1 in the extra deck, but I am considering to bumping up to 2, as well as running Elder Entity Ns, just to have an option to give an out. But for the time being, I don't run that. I still think it's need a little bit of a testing, but it's an option. Then 1 Foolish Burial, 1 1-for-1, and 1 Monster Reborn to round off the spells and round off the 60-card deck. As for main deck, like I said, I'm pretty much final with all of my decisions. Extra deck, however, it's debatable. There's some particular cards I'm like not 100% sure. So let's start with the cards I'm 100% sure of. Herald of the Arclight, 100% it's necessary. Beatrice, 2 level 6s is actually not that hard with another card which I'll show in a second. Cross Sheep, you have rituals, you can draw 2, discard 2, or how that goes. Barricade Blocker, it's just good. This free discard outlet, sometimes you need that. And then Puzzle Dynamo, which is the card that works with Beatrice really, really good. You summon a monster to its zone, and you need 2 different 2 monsters with different levels. You summon a monster to its zone, and then you can change it from a level to 1 to 8. So you most of the time change, like for example, a Battlelord to 6, then use another Slayer on board, after you of course use them for the rituals, effects, and whatever, and then make a Beatrice, and then send Banshee, get Zombie World, and then send, during your opponent turn, Glow Up Bloom to summon the Doom King. 1 Sucker, and then 2 Savior. Savior is the card I'm like not considering maybe run at 1, but the more and more I played with it, I realized that like 2 copies is correct. 1 Phoenix, 1 Unicorn, and this is pretty much the monsters that I'm pretty much sure of. Then we'll move on to those that I'm kind of like, I don't know, their utility or I'm unsure of. First off, Borreload and Mechanite Crusader Evermax to round off our Link monsters. These 2... one of them should be Yukiona once she's come out, so at least for the next update, Yukiona will be here, but for the time being, she's not, so yeah, that's a little bit of a shame. I'm probably going to switch the Borreload, but we'll see about that. And then we add additional Synchros, which are Savage, Clearwing, and F.A. Dawn Dragster. These 2 are kind of understandable, but this one is probably going to kind of like raise some questions. Well, first off, I realized the most easiest level for this deck to make with Unizombie is 7. So, yeah. And I decided to go with this one because most of the monsters I have on the board are level 5 or higher when I'm ending the board. So I want something to protect them. And another thing is that a lot of monsters today, especially because of the invoked particular shenanigans going around, there are level 5 or higher that activate their effects. So, depending on the matchup, I summon this, and I have kind of like 2 negates, which is really, really nice. These 2 are your 2 additional negates to deal with spell traps most of the time. So, yeah, pretty much that's it. So, yeah, that's it, my Vendred build. Hope you guys have enjoyed. This one is the updated version even after my own channel. So yeah, uh, just we're starting something here which is really fun in a Coalition of Scrubs. So keep Coalition of Scrubs. Sorry, sometimes English kind of like confuses me because it's not my first language. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy. I'll see you guys next time, or any other of the guys. And yeah, see you guys maybe even on my own channel. Peace.